My name is Tukura John Daniel. I am popularly known as TJ Dan. I'm a writer, filmmaker, and a politician, an emerging political leader actually, and your future Senate President.
That's nice. What is it like to be a content creator and generally a creative person in Nigeria?
Um, Content creation now, it's a very broad thing, with the emergence of what a lot of people call skate making now. And then there are almost every field, every line of work has an aspect that deals with content creation, because today, thanks to the internet, you have digital marketing, and there are those who earn a living as copywriters. There are those who work in the digital marketing department of almost every business that you know. So it's a very wide, very broad sector right now in Nigeria, and emerging sector still. So there's a lot of opportunities there, but there are also very great challenges, like as with everything in Nigeria, because at some point, whereas there are those people who make six figures every month sitting in their room working, creating content, there are also those who are seeing shiggy, who, at some point you will not start to ask yourself that, why didn't you go to become a mechanic? Why did you decide that you're going to be a creative person? So life as a content creator is very, very intriguing. I think that's the word. It's very thrilling. Ups, down, and then but at the end of the day, if you stick to it, just like with every other thing, you get committed, eventually it will be worth it.
Okay. Your work has of recent tend to be more of what I call political activism. What led you to that direction?
I would never describe myself as an activist, because I don't trust a lot of people who say they're activists, especially those who do not have those who do not have anything doing, and they live off in quote fighting for people. So because a hungry person cannot have integrity, right? So I would not describe myself as an activist, because the word has been abused. I would rather say that I'm a social organizer, because in the past, for the past few years, I've been very involved with organizing at various community level. In fact, the past 1 year has seen me live within my community. So I've been involved with several issues concerning our community. And what has motivated my move towards that is because, one, I've always been interested in politics, and I have seen practical reasons why engagement, involving in the process, is very key. So I'll give you an example. My community in Metama, after we moved from Metama to Kubwa, we've had several issues with government, and recently I was privileged to be to contribute to the fight for the attention of government after an illegal demolition occurred. So together with our leaders in the community level and my political mentors, we had several high-powered, high-level meeting at the minister's office, and it showed me that there are lots of issues, and this is why younger people like us need to be more involved in politics, because there's a limit to what you can do without getting involved in the political process. So that has been my motivation. While we are vest, tear shirt, if you are not vesting in the right room, you are not speaking to the right people, you all that you do becomes a nuisance, and then police start slapping you left and right and center.
Okay, so now let's talk about your book. What is behind the idea and inspiration of your latest book, Welcome to Abuja?
So, like the title suggests, I'm trying to tell the story of Abuja from the perspective, from the lens of the indigenous people. That's never happened. There's never been a book written, there's never been any form of documentation at all about the actual people, the indigenous people of Abuja. So what I'm doing with the book is to first document life the way it was before the seat of power was moved from Lagos to Abuja, and then juxtapose that with the current reality. So, and then therein you now see what has happened, the socio-economic disruption that happened. I'm providing all the facts to the readers, and the book is important for two reasons. One, it documents the life and culture of a people. Then secondly, it provides fact and data to the readers, to every Nigerian, everybody from across the world, for them to now read and see for themselves whether justice has been done or not. So I'll give you an instance. There's this thing that a lot of people do not know. In the FCT, there's a community. There are 3 communities: Jigo, Pambara, and Pei. These 3 communities where, you know where Osman Dam is today, these communities were settled there. They've been there all their lives. When the seat of power was moved to Abuja, they were forcefully evicted from that place to some other places today, where they are now on your way to Buari. That's where those communities are settled now. And the reason for moving them was because they wanted their land to build the dam, which serves the whole of FCT. That dam today provides water to every pipe-borne water to every home in the FCT. But those 3 communities do not have water. They spend money to buy water till today. They were not given anything. They were moved into some very tiny rooms like this. No matter how many you are, they were moved into those places. Their dead were dug up and they were given mass burial. So most of them do not know where their parents are buried. They don't know where their grandparents are buried. In fact, there's a man who told us about how his own father, who had died like barely a month before the move happened, how the father was dug up and smoke was coming out of his body because he was just starting to decompose at that point. And immediately they put the dead body in the truck where they were putting everybody, the bones of other people in. He dissolved practically. So these are stories that a lot of people do not know, or most people need to also know that the fancy places that they see today in Maitama were owned by our people. For instance, one of our grandparents co-owned the land where the DSS headquarters is built today. That land was his sugarcane and rice farm. And then this guy, there's Benjamin's grandfather. He was one of the richest people in the FCT at that time. And we met this lady, Pastor JG's daughter, the OIDA president. So, and we had a very fantastic story. The girl has a very fantastic story in that when she went to secondary school, she was filling form for her ID card. And they asked her where she was from, and she said FCT. And the woman who was attending to her said, nobody's from FCT. She cancelled it and put Nasarawa. So when they issued this girl ID card, she refused to use it. She came back home, complained to her father, and her father went to the school to speak with the authority. Say, my daughter is actually from the FCT. Then they gave her another form to fill. She still put FCT. They still cancelled it and put Ninja for her. And she refused. So till she finished secondary school, she never used the ID card. And those 2 ID cards are still available till today. So it made me realize that there's actually no literature that does justice to the indigenous people of the FCT. So we went around, spoke with almost all the traditional rulers to get a proper glimpse of how life was before now. And then a lot of elderly people as well. So my goal is to use both the documentary and the book itself to narrate, to tell the people what actually FCT looked like before and what it is now, and then to now, most importantly, highlight the level of injustice. I think that in this country, if we're not at the same level, then the people who are the most cheated in this country after the Niger Delta people would be us, and nobody's talking about it. That's what I aim to achieve. Start that conversation and then consistently amplify the conversation till we get the needed result, which is compensation of the indigenous people of FCT.
Okay, that brings me to the next question. As an indigene of Abuja, how do you feel when the FCT is referred as a no man's land?
When people say that the FCT is a no man's land, I actually do not have an emotional reaction to it, because I know that it's useless, But what I do believe is that we know, those of us who are here know, and then legally we have the legal backing that we were here long before the FCT came. In fact, we were carved from different places, and they decided to call this place FCT. We have names for these places long before anybody came here. So whenever anybody talk about that, I just feel like it's just semantics. You're just talking. And when push comes to shove, we know, and they also realize that actually there are people who are indigenous here. But what I do in response to that conversation is to ask whoever is saying that two simple questions. I'm good, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have no emotional reaction to people who say Abuja is a no man's land, because I know that in reality, when push comes to shove, they learn that there are actually people who were here. What I do instead is to ask them some basic questions like, it makes no sense for anyone to assume that there was a vast land as big as FCT for decades, if not even for over a century, and nobody occupied this space. It makes no sense at all. That's one. Then secondly, it also betrays their lack of knowledge of history, because the FCT, clearly in the history of the FCT, it's clear that it was carved from other states. Now, the places that you carved, there were people living in those places, right? So when you say that it was a no man's land, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean that there were no people living there, or do you mean that by the decree of the federal government, it automatically nullified the existence of those people who were there before the FCT was carved out?
Okay, so how has the speech given by General Murtala Mohammed in the 70s affected the FCT today?
I think that it laid the foundation for the nonsense that people say when they say FCT is no man's land, because he said, interestingly, you should read the Aguda report that suggested. So here's what happened. Murtala set up a committee. They went around the country looking for the appropriate place to move the FCT to, and in their report they said they strongly recommended the FCT because, one, that the FCT is the center of the country geographically. Then two, they said the people of the FCT are mild, they are domicile, and that is the place that the federal government would experience the least resistance, given the amount of work and construction that needs to be done for the new federal capital. So it tells you that by the very nature of the recommendation that was made to the General Murtala, it tells you that it was very exploitative from the beginning. So when Murtala and co said that they were the one who started the nonsense talk about Nigeria being Abuja being a no man's land, so it laid the basics for all the disruption that happened, to all the disregard that people have for the indigenous people here, and also for the exploitation that followed. So that's the effect of that speech. Obasanjo tried to correct a bit of that, but it failed. So if you ask me about the effect of the speech, I would say, from looking at from that angle, as a follow-up to your previous question, I would say that it laid the foundation for the injustice that was meted on our people.
What do you think is the biggest hindrance to a united FCT youth that will enable them to speak out with one voice and be heard?
In the FCT, for the Gbagi nation at large, the FCT is very critical, because every Gbagi person outside the FCT looks to the Gbagi person in the FCT for what is possible, what could be done. If those of us in the FCT can get things right, then the other Gbagi people, would be inspired to also move in the right direction. In terms of unity, a united front, I think one of the major problems that the Gbagi people face everywhere is disunity. So in the FCT, for instance, if there's a problem in Buari, the people of Kubwa, people of Garki, be like, and people of Kwali will be like, it's not my business. It's a Buari thing, and they don't get involved. The same way, the Buari people in Buari are looking at the people here in Kubwa as if these people are beneath me, so I have nothing to do with this guy. So that's a fundamental thing. But they operate in the sense of community, where if something does not affect my community directly. But we've gone past that level. We shouldn't be operating at that level anymore, because right now we're all in the same boat, and that boat is sinking. We need to realize that and come together and be like, oh, while I'm paddling here, if unless you are paddling the other way, we can never make headway in general. So that's one. Secondly, we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. First, we have a set of political leaders who do not do what they are supposed to do. Some of them have no business representing us, but they are there, and they don't do what they are supposed to do. But they come back to our people to tell us that it's the federal government that's our problem. And this issue is twofold, because also on the part of the followers need to now realize, because one of the ways you can have very good leaders is if you have very good observant followers who are participating in the process themselves, because that's when you can hold your leader accountable. And if your leader knows that he's going to have to account to you his or her action, then he or she would be more intentional in what they are doing. So that's what we need to do. We need to be brutally honest with us. Your local government chairman would not fail to carry out his duty and come and be telling you that the federal government is the one that is cheating you. There's a saying in Bagi, they say, Nkabalo go Abuga Ngulwa. That's like, we collect our meat for us from the eagle, right? But some of them are the eagle in-house. Some of our leaders are the people who are causing the problem. They are the ones with the thing that they say they are fighting for. They are the ones holding that thing. So we need to be very brutally honest. It's not hatred. You do something and I call you out on it. I tell you this thing you're doing doesn't make sense. We need to move from that. Doesn't mean I hate you. I may not even have an emotional reaction towards you, but it needs to happen. Then amongst you too, because we have problems in the FCT. There are those who have decided that they are going to get rich by pretending that they are fighting for the people. They'll come and tell people in community that get up, let's go and protest this thing, let's go and disrupt somebody's government, a local government chairman somewhere, let's disturb the minister about something. Then you go and you make noise, and they call them behind the scene and they say to them, and they leave you hanging. I know several communities have been pulled out for many years since 2013. In fact, I'll tell you this, I have even been propositioned to where people tell me, TJ, you are a very brilliant writer, you have very good charisma, people listen to you, so come, we can monetize all of that, let's go make noise. Then or some of them, one even told me a very ridiculous thing, that I should act like I'm attacking them when they are defending a politician, so that they will go behind and tell the politician that they are defending him. The politician will not give them money, they will come and give me my court. That's what happened. It's a charade, it's a cycles, a lot of them. So we need to now also start dealing with these people. That's the problem. You can't deal with the enemy outside when there are enemies within. These are the most dangerous people. So if we are going to move ahead, these are very and we have, as Bagi people, why the Aguda panel said that we are very docile people and that the government would experience the least resistance from us is because there's this nonsense we talk about that we are very hospitable people, because we don't want to fight people, because we don't want to argue. To a level, it's cowardice to me. It's nonsense, because you cannot come and threaten my progress. You cannot come and mortgage my future, the future of my kids.
Why the name Welcome to Abuja? Why not Welcome to Kaduna? Welcome to...
Okay, so... Well, it's because of both reasons. First, because I'm an indigene, and because there are things that need to be clarified. There are stories that need to be told. But that knowledge of the story, I got it because I'm an indigene, right? So I was lucky to have interfaced with a lot of grandparents before they died. Some of the 3 key people that I interviewed in my community, for instance, they are no more. They died in succession, a few months after I documented them. They told us stories that nobody knew. Even our parents, some of the stories that our grandparents mentioned, our parents didn't know. So it gives me an advantage over any other person coming here. And then I also had the privilege of documenting the life of Gazaji, one of the oldest man in our community, the guy that Osibanjo met, I think about 3 times before the man passed away. So I met him before they met with Osibanjo, and after Osibanjo visited, I was able to document all of that. So it gives me an edge put me in the right place to tell that story. And I think we should all do it for all the states where the Gbagi people are, so that we can tell that story from the insider's perspective. For instance, I'm interested to know how we lost Kaduna as Gbagi people. I also want to understand the dynamics of the Gbagi relations, the different dialects of Gbagi people in Niger State, and why we have not, from a political angle, why we have not been able to produce a governor in Niger State. So I actually think we should do it for every state, because that would force us to have to go and investigate, to go and interview the key people who matter, and that will give us a vast knowledge of. I have hard drives or videos and audios that will not even make the final cut for the documentary. But these are wealth of information, wealth of knowledge that are useful. Some of these people, like I said, they are no more. They died. We started this since 2019, and a lot of them have died after that. So imagine if we had not documented. In fact, our grandfather, the Bemanai that I was telling you about, we missed him because we were thinking that he's around. We can always interview him at any time, and then he died before we could get to him. So yeah, we should do it for all the 5 states.
Okay, lastly, as a youth and as a young politician, what's the position of the youth come 2023 election?
The position of the youth. I think we've always been in a position of power, but we don't know. The youths have always been, because if you didn't know, then the COVID thing should have put it in perspective for everyone. Partly why in Africa we recorded very minimum death, very little death in COVID, is because COVID, a lot of victims of the COVID pandemic, of the COVID itself, are very old people, and the demographic of Africa, but let's stick to Nigeria, we have more number of young people. So that tells you that we have the scale of power is tilted in our favor, but we are not aware of it. That's the problem. So come 2023, we still have that power in our favor, but we only need to be aware and not take advantage of it. So I would say that for 2023 and even beyond, in fact, if you are not even a political member, go and become a political member of a political party and get involved in the process. Because unless you are in the game, you will never be. Young people, old people gathered in Abuja to decide for us the flag bearers of all our political parties. Young people were where? On Twitter shouting. Doesn't matter. You can shout all you want on Twitter. You would never be at the venue to choose who becomes your flag bearer. The way to that, there's a system in place. I understand that we want to replace the system, but you can never replace a system that you don't understand. It's like saying that you don't like how generators sound. You can never build a better generator when you don't know how to build a generator. So we need to be involved in the process so that we can eventually get to grow through the ranks and be in a place where we are in the room where decisions are made, so that we can be, maybe in 27 or maybe much later, we can be at the venue where we decide who becomes our presidential flag bearer of our party, rather than be on Twitter shouting. I'll give you an example. When I moved to my current party, I attended my first ward meeting. I always tell the story to everyone that I'm encouraging to become a party member. It was weird. I felt out of place because I'm used to hanging out with very educated people, right? I'm used to hanging out with people who are posh, people who are woke, in quote. So I'm used to, if we have a meeting, we go to a very posh eatery. You know, our houses are well furnished and whatnot, right? So I'm used to moving in that cycle. Then all of a sudden, I was in a place where these people, their thinking seemed to be different from mine. And for the first 3 hours, I was like, am I sure I'm in the right place? I wanted to leave. The only thing that made me stay was because I had decided, I had come into an understanding of why we must be involved in the system. So I decided to wait and said, let me see the end of this meeting, and then the next one, and then the next one. Then I started learning new things that I had come with my cup full, thinking I know everything. So, and once your cup is full, you can't take in new things. So I had to now start saying that, okay, let me assume I know nothing about power, I know nothing about politics, this is a new field, let me learn. And the next meeting was easier for me. And eventually I started realizing that these people are not, you know, the thing that most young people think online is that our political leaders are stupid. We think that they are not as educated as we are, that they are not as exposed as we are. But when you get close, you now realize that you are wrong. Because politics is local. These people have better understanding, and that's why they've been running this country forever. They understand how it works. And when they act in court, when they act by the standard that we think is stupid, it's because they know that that's the standard that will get them votes. So I have learned a lot from actively participating. I was privileged to be the returning officer or ward agent for my party. In the last elections, I had 80 polling units under me that I was supervising. That's a big deal. That would not have happened if I was not involved. I got involved. I paid my dues. I played vital role in growing the party. I worked for the party. I gave in myself, and that happened. I even wanted to delegate for Senate and House of Rep. I was considered for it, but eventually I was told to step down because I was too new to the party, and there are people who had wanted it for a long time. So that means that if I had been in the party longer, I would have been a delegate to decide who becomes the flag bearer for the Senate and the House of Rep. That's growth. And then the next thing, one day I'll become a national delegate. So we need, for the youth, we have the power. We have the advantage to us in the power, in the equation of power. But the funny thing is that we are not even in the equation. So you need to be in the equation to matter. If otherwise, any advantage you have is like having dynamic energy, but you're not putting it to use. So it's not kinetic energy. It's not moving. It's just there, potential, and nothing.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. My name is Tukura John Daniel. I am popularly known as TJ Dan. You are watching IAMBEST TV. God is in charge.